Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and call me Hubie, and I know a lot of my viewers aren't big into the online book community, so might not have heard of Her Kid, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. It was created by Qwerty, so she's got whole videos on it, which I will link in the description below, but they are quite long, so I just wanted to give a smaller outline for my viewers. I'm planning on doing the challenge, so some context might be necessary. I also first found out about the challenge because Freshly Read Books did it on her channel, which I'll also link below, and I have been patiently waiting for 7th July since late last year. 7th July because that's when Her Kid officially starts. You can start it any time you want, but I wanted to start with everyone else. This is the 3rd year of Her Kid, and every year the rules change slightly. First of all, it's essentially multiple reading challenges in one. That's arguably two. One. It's like a bingo square, but if each square had its own squares within it. There is also an easy version and a kids/teen version which require reading fewer books. But the purpose of Her Kid is not to complete it, but instead to expand your reading horizons and maybe get out of your comfort zone. If you're one of my viewers who used to read a lot but can't get back into it, then starting the easier version, eloquently named the Ain't Nobody Got Time for That edition, might be helpful as it gives a bit of a push for what to read. There's also a gamified edition where you roll a die, and depending on what it lands on, you add an additional prompt to an existing prompt. But I'm not really going to go into that further. I'm not even overly going to go into what each prompt means, but I will go through them all in order. I've also made my own graphic for this, which is based on Fable's February TBR bingo graphic from February and the favourite book of the year graphics from all over the internet. I've made it purple and orange because I like purple and I like foxes who are orange and I like Spyro who is bubble and orange. I was going to chuck them, but I don't want to chuck them. Let's put you down delicately there. Okay. You're fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for thinking about chucking you. There's also a ready-made Google Sheets, ready-made journal available in paperback, hardback and PDF, a challenge on Storygraph, and a whole Discord server of help. I'll put a link to the website in the description below, and the rest are easily found on Discord, for which there's a link at the bottom of the website, so I don't want to put links to everything in the description unless someone asks me to. I feel like most of my viewers probably have Discord, but if you don't, let me know and I'll get you the link. Editing Hubie popping in here to say that since I recorded this video, Qwerty has made a webpage full of helpful links, which basically has all the stuff I mentioned here, plus an FAQ and maybe more. So I'll link that in the description. I basically just didn't want to fill up my description with loads of different links and making it difficult to navigate. But one link to lots of links, that's good. In the challenge overall, and why it's both the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and the goal isn't to fully complete it, there are 150 prompts. Each book you read you may use for 2 prompts, meaning it requires a minimum of 75 books to complete. 75 is actually my reading goal for this year, so technically it could be possible for me to complete it, but I don't want to curate my reading for an entire year exclusively around this challenge. I need room for whimsy. There ain't nobody got time for that version. You just need to read 1 book per prompt, so just the bingo square, not the squares within the squares. The teen/kids version is the same, but their prompts are slightly different. I'm also going to have 2 copies of my graphics. One is going to have the books on every prompt they can be used for, and the other is going to have them on the ones that I am using it for. This is partially so I can see what it looks like at the end, but mostly so that if I'm struggling on completing a prompt, I can look at the other graphic, and if there's already a book there that I've used for different prompts instead, I can rearrange them without going over every single book in my head. I also have a 3rd version which has possible reads for each prompt, but I imagine that's mostly going to be useful at the beginning of the challenge. Now let's get on with the prompts. The first square is called Choose Your Party. It's a cute little D&D reference where each of the 5 books must relate to a different class of D&D, but they don't have to be fantasy. They can be translated into the real world. As some examples, a book about a priest could count as a cleric, a book about a thief, a rogue, etc. If you don't have any knowledge of D&D, this one could get a bit difficult, but that's where the community comes in handy. The next square is Periodic Table of Elements, 5 books with the names of different elements in the title. I thought this was going to be a difficult prompt, but in her video, Qwerty gave a lot of examples. Apparently there are even books with radium in the title. I was suspecting this one could be the most difficult for me, but then I looked through the bookshelves in the house and I'm up to 4 of 5, so long as I read them, of course. Then we have Familial Terms, another 5-book prompt where all of them must have a familial term in the title. Daughter of Darkness could be an example book for this one, as I've discovered there are lots of books with that title, so you have a lot of choice. But each family member can only have 1 square. You can't have multiple squares that use daughter, and you also can't have different versions of the same type of family member. So if you read a book with mum in the title and one with mother in the title, you have to pick one, but mother and father are fine. Square 4 is regional book. I think this one might get me too, just because I'm mildly confused on regions. Geography is not my best subject. There are once again 5 books in this prompt and they all must take place in a different region. Hercule 2.0 had the different continents, so this is basically an updated version of that. Some examples of regions are East Asia, Mediterranean, Latin America, Eastern Europe, etc. I'm just worried I'll get confused and end up with one in the wrong category, like I'll end up with 2 in Latin America or something. I feel like this next one could be a lot of fun and I love the idea of it. Choose your curriculum. Each of the 5 books, yes, it's 5 again, must relate to a different school subject. A sports romance could be PE, for example. Qwerty was very clear though that a romance can't count as chemistry just because they have chemistry. They have to actually be chemists or something similar. It does not matter how much chemistry they have with each other. This can also obviously be non-fiction, as with any of these prompts, so long as they fit. So if I'm really struggling, I might just read one of my books on anxiety to count for psychology. I might struggle with this one too. Road trip. 5 books from different states that aren't California or New York, as those are overrepresented in media. It can also be regions within your own country, so long as they're not also overrepresented. I almost mispronounced that then. Not London, for example. I mean, London, Canada, it's probably fine. London, England, not so much. I'll probably read as normal and make notes as I go along and hopefully sort something out from there. Finally, we have a prompt with a different number of books. This is only 2 and it's called Bookception. First, you must find a book that mentions another book. Read that book. Read the mentioned book. Congrats, you have finished Bookception. Yay! Personally, I think I will read until I find a book that mentions another one and then read that. The only problem I might have with this one is that for the overall challenge, there's a rereading rule that you can reread a book, but it can only count if you haven't read it for 5 years or more. Earlier this year, I read Wuthering Heights, which is mentioned in Twilight. It would have been very easy to tick this prompt off with those 2, but now I can't. There's also a no books by a certain female British author rule. So another frequently mentioned book about a certain closeted wizard is also out. I'll find something, I'm sure. And last year's Hat Kit had a section of secret prompts. Each month a new prompt was revealed and had to be completed within that month, if I'm understanding correctly. This year all 12 are revealed and must be done under the same section. There's read a book outside with accessibility options for it being in a car or by a window instead. Read a book with a punny title. Read a book with a craft on the cover, or listen to an audiobook while you do a craft yourself. Read a book with a first name and last name in the title of the book. Read a book you've been procrastinating on, so for me it could be the book that's been on my TBR the longest. Read a book that isn't the only book with a title. As I mentioned previously, Daughter of Darkness has a lot of different books called that, so that could count for this. Read a book you missed out on reading as a child. Read a book with a title that features one of the colours from Joseph's Technicolor coat, and there's a list of all the colours. Read a book you found while doom scrolling, or on social media at least. Read a book with someone in motion throughout, or exercise while reading the book, or have someone in motion on the cover of the book, falling, flying, running, etc. Read your most recently acquired book. This could be a book that you acquired at any point during the challenge, so long as it was your most recently acquired at the time you complete this prompt. Read a book with an author whose last name is also a first name. For this one, two came to mind for me immediately, which is Kristen Hannah and Sophie Hannah. I don't know if Hannah is just a common surname for authors or what, but hey. And that was a long prompt to explain, which is why I was very specifically reading them out, because Square 9 is 4 different cover styles. I didn't really understand this one until watching the video, but she's talking like illustrated, photo, minimalist, maximalist, symbols, that sort of thing. Next is titular counting, another long prompt. You need to read 10 books for this. Basically, you're just counting how many words are in the title. Hyphenated words count as one word. I asked, I checked. If it's a one-word title, it counts as 1, two-word title 2, etc. all the way to 10. I have no idea what books have a title that long, but we'll see what I find. I have a year. Then character to author. It's a 3-book chain. You read whatever book, then the next book must have an author who shares a first name with the main character in the first book. Then the next must have an author who shares a first name with the main character in the second book. So Sophie's Choice, a book by Sophie Hannah, for example, then obviously one after that, depending on what book by Sophie Hannah you chose. Here's another chain prompt, Shiritori. You read any book, then the next book must start with the last letter of the first book. The third book must start with the last letter of the second book, and continue until you've read 5 books in this way. I wrote down an example. Daughter of Darkness, Sophie's Choice, Aragon, Not Quite Dating, Glass Coffin. I believe you can ignore the and A if you want, but I haven't checked. Away from the chain prompts, we now have mashup. For this, you have to take one prompt from HurtKit 1.0 and one prompt from HurtKit 2.0 and mash them together. This obviously requires knowledge from both of those, so I'm going to have to do some additional research for this. I know a lot of prompts from Freshly Read Books videos, but she ended up with prompts from both versions for the whole challenge, so I have no idea which are from version 1 and which are from version 2. Similar to titular counting, we have another numbered one, but this time the number must be in the title. There are 11 books needed for this, numbers 1 through 10, and then a bonus extra one that can be any random number. What this prompt immediately brought to mind for me was that Janet Vanovich series that include a number in all of the titles. 1 for the money, 2 for the dough, 3 to get deadly, 4 to score, etc. It goes all the way up to 30. I do have access to them, but I've never read them, so I don't know whether I'd like them or even want to do it this way. It feels too easy in a way, but we'll see. This next one actually annoyed me a little. It's a rainbow of words. So a previous version, I think 2.0 or maybe both of them, had a rainbow prompt as well, where the colours had to be the predominant colour on the cover. But this one, the colour has to be in the title. Why did this annoy me? Well, I was planning on doing a colour wheel challenge video where the colour had to be in the title rather than the cover colour as it's usually done. Now it feels derivative, even though I thought of it first, but it could also be a good way to get started on this prompt. The 11 book colours, including this prompt, are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, pink, white, black, silver, gold. So not even the colours I usually put on a colour wheel, but that could certainly change. Square 16 is animal families, 6 books with different animals on the cover. They have to be properly different animals. You can't just choose different dog breeds, for example, and you could definitely activate ultra hard mode where instead of families of animals, you use class of animals, so mammal, bird, fish, reptile, amphibian, insect, but that would be ultra hard. To be fair, if I somehow do end up reading a book with each of those types, I probably will specifically use one of each, just for the fun of it, but I'm definitely not going massively out of my way to do so. If you're just a casual viewer and not a reader watching right now, then thank you so much for sticking with me. Comment a purple heart to show you're still listening. And we have another geography type one now called Biomes and Landscapes, which totally did not just make me think of Minecraft, honest. 6 different books which covers feature different landscapes. Savanna, urban, mountains and forest are some of the provided examples. This next one I'm not sure about, and that's Remix book. 5 of them again. It's a book written in a different way from normal, like twisted fairy tales, but some of the examples of how the stories change can be villain's POV, gender bent, after happily ever after. I've checked, and 4, which is divergent but told from the perspective of the character 4, would count. A book that came from fan fiction, confirmed, could also count. There are also a couple of those I'm interested in, but I'm not sure if sequels count there. Like the first one was fan fiction, but the sequel wasn't. I might have to check. Then we have Food Pyramid, which I'm a little apprehensive about. 5 books that feature a food of a different type on the cover. Protein, dairy, fruit, etc. Crops do count. So if it's an apple tree, it counts as fruit. But I can't think of many that have food on them. Though I've also never thought to look before, so. Okay, so I lost the race against my camera battery, so any differences you see, that is why. I also sped through quite a few of the prompts, so I am going to go back and redo some of them in case they're too fast. But I don't know when I started speeding up, so if there are any that are super speedy, then I apologise. And remember, there are subtitles available on all of my videos. So if you couldn't work out what I was saying, you can put the subtitles on. Obviously, go back at this point in the video and put the subtitles on. The next prompt is Mother Nature. This is mostly related to weather or similar events. Tornado, volcano, lightning, fog, fire must be pictured on the cover. If it's sunny, then the sun itself must be visible. This prompt requires 6 books. You may have realised at this point that most prompts require either 5 or 6. Then I'm not sure about this next one at all. It's called It's Your Birthday! And my problem with that is that for some reason I don't like the idea of the internet knowing my birthday. It makes me uncomfortable for some reason. So I think I probably won't be sharing which books I choose for these prompts. But there are 7 prompts within this prompt. One related to your birthstone in some way, whether that's title, cover, theme, significant plot points. One published in your birth month any year. If you want to get ultra hard with it, you could try to find one published in your birth month and year, but that is not a requirement. One with a title, theme, cover or plot point linked to your Western zodiac sign, that's Cancer, Leo, Scorpius, etc. One with a title, cover, theme or significant plot point linked to your Chinese zodiac, which is rabbit, dog, rat, etc. Then the same with birth flower and again with birth tree. I had no idea what those last 2 were for me, but this prompt is lower on my priorities list anyways, as I don't feel comfortable sharing them. I'm going to put this down now somewhere safe. This next one I'm pretty excited about. It's called Backlist Authors, and it's essentially just 5 books that you haven't read yet that are by your favourite authors. I absolutely adored The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin, but I have read nothing else by her. So I think I might use this as an opportunity for that, although I might try to be fancy and do 5 different authors for this prompt. Not sure yet. On to prompt 23, which is named appropriately to avoid copyright concerns. I must endeavour to acquire these creatures. That's a pretty long prompt for my graphic, so I've abbreviated. For this prompt, you must read 5 books that are somehow related to different Pokemon types. Using Daughter of Darkness as an example, again, that could count as Dark type. Aragon could count as Dragon type, Akatar, Fairy, it goes on. The penultimate prompt, yes, we're almost there, is anthology. This prompt requires reading 7 books. The first is an anthology, and then the remaining 6 are books by authors from that anthology. Going back to my MCM Indie Authors video, I bought an anthology called Reign of Dragons from Helen Garraway's stall. I could read that and then, for example, Harmony from her, but I couldn't then read one of her series and count any of those books as well. The 6 books are from 6 different authors within that anthology. I'll have to look up the other authors when I get there. And lastly, second chances or hidden gems. This requires reading 5 books and seems a bit more open-ended than lots of the others. They can be books that you randomly found, perhaps in a charity shop, your grandma's house, or a free little library, or they can be ones with low ratings, not many reviews, or even ones that you've hard or soft DNF'd in the past. I've actually been meaning to do a video about books I've DNF'd over the years, so I'll probably choose some based on that. And we've come to the end. Hopefully this video wasn't overly long. Comment in orange heart if you made it here. This does mean that I might start doing my TBR and wrap-up videos separately from now on, as they'll relate differently to this challenge, but I'll work that out when I get to it. I'm also planning on doing more reading vlogs, and we'll probably end up doing ones related specifically to these prompts. I already mentioned the colour wheel one, for example, though it might be a little different from how I had originally planned. Thank you for watching. If you want to, please like and subscribe, and maybe you'll see me in the next one. Until then, bye.